Welcome everyone as we celebrate Christmas Eve and as we reflect on the meaning of Christmas Eve. There's a story of a young boy who wanted a watch for Christmas. And he just kept pestering his parents about, I want a watch. He said, Dad, I really want a watch for Christmas. And then he went to his mom and he would say, Mom, I really need a watch. I want a watch for Christmas. And every time he opened his mouth, he was asking for a watch. Well, finally his dad said, enough of this. If you say you want a watch one more time, you're definitely not going to get one. I am going to write to Santa Claus and say, no watch. So the boy got silent, and then there was a time where when they said their meals, they always chose a Bible verse and you would recite the Bible verse, and then you would say your meal prayer. So it came the boy's turn to pick out a Bible verse and to say that Bible verse. So he looked and he found one from the Gospel of Mark. It was Mark 13, verses 37. And he started out with, and what I say to you, I say to all, watch. And we could reflect on how he tried to get that idea of watch across. When we think of Advent, we think of watching, we think of preparing for Christmas, and we think of just the anticipation that goes into preparing for this evening that we are about to celebrate. And when we think of it and we think of our coming to church or wherever we are, at this time of the year, there's a certain buzz in the air. If you're here in Wisconsin, we've had some beautiful snows, and it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Really is. And also, we could think of songs and how songs, sometimes say it's becoming, you can feel Christmas, or other just appropriate songs that tell us that Christmas is coming or is here. We could reflect on that whole idea of the excitement that goes with Christmas and how at this time of the year that membrane between heaven and earth seems to be so thin that we can almost look into heaven. When we think of this evening, and if you're here at church and you look at our beautiful display, not just here at the crib scene, but throughout the sanctuary. We might imagine it as being a waiting room in a hospital, and how in a waiting room in the hospital, if there's a child that's about to be born, more than likely there's somebody pacing back and forth and saying, when am I going to see the doctor come out or the nurse come out and say that child has been born? Well, this is our waiting room for Christ to be born once again into our lives, and into our hearts. And we symbolize that really with our crib scene, and the placing of Christ, in the manger. Christ now is coming. He's been born, and he'll be with us throughout the Christmas season and throughout our lives. And I will climb up here, hopefully, and place Christ in his place in the manger. When we think of Christ being born, there's probably many different ways that he comes into our lives and into our hearts. And at Christmas, from the first time on, probably was never perfect. We could think of Joseph and Mary, and they go to the inn. And I'm sure that the innkeeper looked at them, felt sorry for them, and actually looked for a place where they might stay. But it was just, the inn was just plain packed. And so, he has to send them out to the stable and where there's a manger. And Christ is born and is laid in that manger. But even so, I'm sure that Joseph and Mary looked down on that child with a great deal of love. And they studied the small face of that child and probably listened to it breathe, and listened also, to its murmurs or maybe a scream or two. But what comes out of it is this. What comes out of it is the fact that God has taken on a human form, that Christ is both fully God, and fully man. But the important thing in the mystery of it all and the important message of it all is that God the Father wanted to send a sign, that he loves us. And Christ is that sign in the flesh of God the Father's love for us. And it's going to be expressed and shown through the life of Christ. And what we could think about is that love is a love that is permanently for us. Christ doesn't love us just once in a while, or he doesn't love us when it's convenient. But that love of God the Father, expressed through Christ, is with us all the time.